Good afternoon, everyone. Now I request KG Bhuva sir to please welcome all the participants and introduce our invited speaker, Dr. Kiran Parmar sir, to the participants.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
First of all, I would like to welcome our all the participants and our speaker guest, Dr. Uh, Kiran Parmar sir. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing, in spite of your busy schedule, you have spared your time. And in short, I want to give your introduction to all the participants. Kirat Parmar is PhD and having more than 27 years of teaching experience, as well as if I don't forget that at the 12th standard also he was in top 10 of the Gujarat board, and since that time he is a eminent personality and he has lots of teaching experience in different fields. I can say he's all rounder. You can say any topic. Once when we decide the topic, so Parmar sir tell me, you tell me the topic. I will prepare accordingly. So for the benefit of students and faculties, we all know that theoretical content of satellite communication. So we have discussed and decided the topic, latest topic related to satellite communication. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing in your time. Again, now you can start your presentation.
Thank you, sir. Hello, am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
you are audible.
Oh,
Please
Yes, sir.
start your video also, sir, if possible.
okay, okay. Video is on, but somehow the problem with some settings. Okay,
No, no issue, sir. Your presentation is now visible to participants. Sir. No
okay.
issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this webinar on recent trends in satellite communications. Sorry for the change in timing. Normally, the webinars are scheduled at 11 a.m., but I had another review of a master student who is interestingly pursuing his master's and technology MTech by research at Nirma University. And just before half an hour, he gave me a presentation on this latest technology on satellite communication itself. It is about high throughput satellites. So it is a good thing that just before half an hour, I was discussing these recent trends with the master student. It has been my normal practice to always start from ground zero, the most fundamentals aspects of a particular topic, and that's why I would like to start with the basics of satellite communication, and slowly we would progress towards the advancements or recent advances. Fortunately, in satellite communication, the advances are not drastic or on a very large scale that something has drastically changed from previous generation to next generation. Of course, slowly they are evolving, but still we are using C band, extended C band, Ku band, and a little bit in the Ka band also. So I would like to start with the basics. Next slide, please. So what is a satellite? Basically, a satellite is a celestial body, astronomical term, and moon is a satellite of Earth, right? Space vehicle is also a satellite, but it is an artificial satellite. It is an aerospace term. Communication satellite provides communication and other services to a variety of consumers. So there are types of satellites. We would like to see the classification also, and the classification is based on several parameters. It is based on application, it is based on the frequency band, it is based on particularly the agencies which are launching the satellites, right?
Sir, please unmute yourself. Someone has muted your audio.
Okay.
Yes, sir, audible.
Satellite system may consist of one or several such repeaters, a control earth station, and a network of user earth stations, right? So it is a microwave repeater. Satellite is a microwave repeater. We have geostationary satellites, we have low Earth orbit satellites, we have polar satellites, medium Earth orbit, and so on. And there has to be a control station which controls the entire communication between various Earth stations on the ground, because there is a network of user Earth stations. All Earth stations can't be given control. There has to be a single control, a dedicated control which controls the communication. And we have uplinks, we have downlinks, feeder link, bus or payload. So these terms are the most commonly used terms for satellite communication. Next. How do we categorize the communication satellites? The categorization is on the basis of coverage area, whether it is a global coverage or regional coverage or national coverage. Suppose India is launching satellites, INSAT series of satellites or geostationary satellites, GSAT series of satellites. How would they plan the footprint? The footprint is the coverage area. They would naturally like Indian subcontinent or India only as a footprint, right? Why should they transmit the beams or include the coverage to other countries unless it is specifically required for international telecommunication traffic, right? So the coverage area is decided by the countries which are launching their satellites, whether it has to be a global or regional or national. Then there are services which are classified: fixed satellites, fixed service satellite, broadcast service satellite, and mobile service satellite, FSS, BSS, and MSS. So this is based on service type, the classification based on service type. And there are classification based on general use also, like commercial satellites, military satellites, amateur satellites, experimental satellites, and so on. I have brought the classification done by ISRO, because ISRO is the agency responsible for carrying out these launch activities of launching of satellite, establishing communication links, providing the coverage of television channels, and other experiments which they are carrying out. So that classification is separately discussed. If we see the orbits of the satellites, we have a classification like low Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit, geostationary orbit, and highly elliptical orbit, right? So the range is from several hundred kilometers. If 500 kilometers is roughly 800 to 900 kilometers, low Earth orbit, it would be close to the Earth. Medium Earth orbit, 6,000 to 12,000 miles, around 20,000 kilometers. Then there are geostationary satellites, 22,000 miles, precisely 35,786 kilometers, or roughly we said that 36,000 kilometers. So the most important satellites are geostationary satellites. The geostationary satellites have very specific conditions. Which satellite would be identified as a geostationary satellite? There are three requirements for geostationary satellite. Number one, its orbital period has to be same as that of Earth. That means 24 hours or slightly less than 24 hours, 23 hours and 56 minutes and some seconds. It has to have a zero inclination. That orbit has to be equatorial orbit. It can't be having any inclination. These are inclined orbits. They are not geostationary orbit. There is some inclination with orbital plane, equatorial plane. So they are not geostationary. Whereas these polar satellites and other satellites, they have inclination and they are highly elliptical. Their orbits are inclined. We have two common terms, apogee and perigee, and everybody is aware about these two terms, definition of apogee and perigee. There are several constellations of the satellite which are operational. Several low Earth orbit satellites for the Iridium system, and then there are medium Earth orbits for the navigation purpose and so on. And these constellation of satellites, they keep on rotating or revolving around the Earth. Yes, please. Now, how do we position the geosynchronous satellite and geostationary satellite? These two terms are different. Several times we believe that geostationary and geosynchronous are same. No, they are not. Let me explain the fundamental difference between geostationary and geosynchronous. The geosynchronous satellites are in inclined orbits. They are not in zero inclination orbits. They are not in the same equatorial plane, right? So first of all, they have some inclination. Second, their orbital period may not be exactly 24 hours or 23 hours and 56 minutes. It is close to geostationary. It is close to geostationary or approximately geostationary. But these two terms are mostly used synonymously. People say it is geosynchronous or geostationary. But strictly speaking, geostationary satellites do not exist, or it is very difficult to launch geostationary satellites. And even if we launch them as a geostationary satellites, we can't maintain that particular orbital position, the control of the satellite, its orientation of the satellite, such that it exactly remains at 0-degree inclination with respect to the equatorial plane. So that is not possible, and that's why they are all approximately geostationary orbits. We can say they are geosynchronous because they follow the condition of 24 hours of rotation with respect to Earth, so that they appear to be stationary. So it is approximately stationary, not 100% stationary, right? See how they are positioned around the globe. So this is an equatorial orbit, and you can see several satellites are positioned. How do we mention this satellite position? It is either in terms of east or west longitude, right? East or west longitude. We do not mention latitude because latitude is 0-degree. 0-degree means it is equator. Equator, it is equatorial. So they are placed above the equator, and their position is differentiated only on the basis of their east or west longitudes. So 143 degree, 135 degree, then 190 degree, 114 degree. So many satellites. Now you would be surprised to know that we can say there is a parking problem of these satellites, because many countries have launched many satellites in these orbits, right? And the spacing of between two satellites is either 1 degree or 2 degree. So how many maximum satellites you can position? At the most, with 1 degree spacing, you can position 360 satellites, or with 2 degree position control, you would have 180 satellites. So maximum 180 or 360 satellites can be put in the equatorial orbit, in the geostationary orbit. And there are international regulations. You have to consult the international organizations to see whether the orbital positions are adhered to by the countries which launch the satellites. Next. What are the merits and demerits of geostationary orbits? Right. So geostationary orbits are having advantages as well as disadvantages. The most important advantage is it is appearing to be stationary, and you do not require tracking. So they appear to be stationary because their rotation period and the Earth's rotation period, they are same. 100% availability of all Earth stations in their footprint or shadow area. They are always available because they appear to be stationary for a given point on the Earth. So their footprint or shadow area is always available. It's not that satellite is visible only for some amount of time, or it passes through a given area only at some designated time, and so on, right? There is no satellite switching required in case of LEO and MEO satellites, because you are able to visualize that satellite, not physically, not in terms of naked eye visualization, but in terms of communication, right? So you don't require switching from one satellite to another. You are continuously connected to one particular geostationary satellite. And there is no negligible Doppler shift, because there is no relative motion between the Earth and the satellite. There is no question of Doppler shift. The Doppler shift comes into existence only when there is a relative motion between the object which is transmitting and the object which is receiving. So sophisticated and heavy propulsion devices required on board is disadvantage. Now we go for the disadvantages. You require a very heavy rockets to launch these geostationary satellites. You can imagine you have to put the satellite in the orbit at a height of 36,000 kilometers. The normal aircrafts fly at a height of 10 kilometers. The international space stations have a height of 500 kilometers. You can imagine the height of 36,000 kilometers. It is not an easy task to launch a satellite in this geostationary orbit, which is far away. 36,000 kilometers, you can imagine the distance. It is not an easy task, and it requires a very precise computation, mathematical computation, launch methods, launching vehicles, launching sites, and so on, coordination. And that's why several missions fail also. They are not always successful. Several missions fail because there are many complexities associated with geostationary orbits and putting the satellite in geostationary orbits. So sophisticated and heavy rockets required, as well as on board also you have a sophisticated circuitry. Longer propagation delay because the height is 36,000 kilometer, round trip distance is 72,000 kilometer, and you have roughly 500 to 600 millisecond of delay. I don't know whether you have noticed this phenomena, this interesting phenomena in the day, in these days, especially Corona pandemic and the briefing of government officers. See, many government officers go live for briefing the press or media or the public at large at designated time at 4 p.m. or at 5 p.m. So what happens? You have your mobile phone, you are listening to that particular conversation or address from that particular government authority at 4 p.m. on your mobile phone using Facebook, suppose. So you receive the communication. After some amount of time, you receive the same communication on television. Why? Because television signals are routed through satellites. Satellites are far away, 72,000 kilometers of round trip distance, and same voice, same picture is broadcast via TV after half an hour. Half a minute, not half an hour, half a minute. You can clearly observe this phenomena these days when government officers are briefing the media or briefing the public at large. You can see this very clearly. This 500 to 600 millisecond of delay can be clearly measured. You can have your wristwatch or a timer and you can measure the delay between satellite signal and your local ground-based mobile network. This is a small exercise but an interesting exercise to clearly know about the round trip delay of the satellite. The high power transmitters and more sensitive receivers are required because the power levels are high, because propagation losses are high, because distance is high, and that's why these circuitries are complicated. You have high precision spacemanship required because you have to put the satellite in a designated orbit with 1 degree or 2 degree spacing. The frequency bands available for satellite communications are, see, these bands are very common. They are used throughout the communication industry. They are never specified for a single country. It is universally accepted. So, and these bands are continued for satellite applications. So we have L band, S band, C band, X band, Ku band, K band, and Ka band. Right. The most widely used bands for satellite communication are C band, Ku band, and Ka band these days. C and Ku are most widely used. Sometimes they also call it extended C because up to 8 gigahertz, this includes extended C also. Normally it is 4 to 6 gigahertz, but if it is extended up to 8 gigahertz, we call it extended C. So you can see the general applications of these satellites. Mobile satellite services 1 to 3 gigahertz because our mobile networks are working in this particular frequency. Then fixed satellite services are 4 to 8 gigahertz. Fixed satellite services and broadcast satellite services BSS is in Ku band. And these remaining bands K, etc., they are both used for either BSS, FSS or only for FSS. Next. How does this satellite provide coverage to the Earth? Right. So this diagram is a very important diagram. You can see the footprint of a satellite. Satellite antenna radiation patterns decide the footprint. And if you know the antenna basics, antenna can be made directional by designing it in a specific shape. The shape would decide directivity. The current phase which is given to the antenna would decide the directivity, and calculation of directive radiation patterns is extremely complicated mathematical equations of electromagnetic theory. You would be surprised to know that to compute electric field and magnetic field for a single ideal kind of current element, the derivation runs for 3 phases. So you know the complex derivations associated with beam patterns and radiation patterns of antennas, but we are interested in the shape of the patterns, and these are the shapes. What happens? The point where it is maximum is in terms of dBW. This is dBW, dB watt. The power expressed as a dBW. So the innermost circle has higher dBW, and as you go go towards outer side, the radius increases, then the power received would decrease. So from 44 point to say 35.6 dBW, you have the coverage in terms of received power, right? This is the power received for given coverage area. So EIRP is your effective isotropic radiated power. They are contour lines, and you get roughly these kind of patterns for the antennas, and they are superimposed on a geographical map. So depending on the coverage area, you have to map this particular footprint. Then and then only you can receive your satellite signals. It depends on orbital path. Previous slide, please. It depends on orbital path, height, and antenna used. Okay. Next. Now, primarily we divide the antenna radiation patterns or footprints in three types. Either you have a spot beam or zonal beam, which has a very narrow or sharp beam width, which covers only 10%. So this area A, which covers only a small area on the earth, which is having only less than 10% coverage. This less than 10% is the overall geographical coverage on the earth. There can be hemispherical coverage with 20%, area like B, right? This is 20%. And the more wide coverage area, that is global or earth, which is roughly 42%. Now see, you using a single satellite, you would be never able to cover the entire globe. You require minimum 3 satellites to cover the globe, because 40 into 3 would be 120, and roughly 120 degree, because the earth is not entirely mass, right? It consists of seas and oceans also. So you need to cover the land mass also, and that's why that would be more than sufficient. 140 degree, 120 degree roughly coverage on the earth. So you have spot or zonal beam, then you have a hemispherical, and you have earth or global beam. Earth and global beam would be around 42%. Half of that would be hemispherical, and less than 10% would be spot or zonal beam. And then depending on application, your satellites would have this kind of radiation patterns or footprints. We increase the frequency, the coverage, by increasing the frequency reuse. Means you use vertical polarization and horizontal polarization. What is the advantage? You can double the number of channels. Suppose I am able to send 6,000 telephone channels, I can send 12,000 telephone channels, one on vertical polarization, another on horizontal polarization. This is just to improve the transmission capacity of the satellite. So this frequency reuse is very much in existence in satellite networks, and as on today we do use this kind of polarization. Next. This is the uplink of the satellite. See, we have to clearly understand uplink, downlink, and the transponder or the satellite or the space segment. The uplink has a baseband signal which comes from the terrestrial network. Suppose there is a telephone exchange, there is a gateway which is a land-based network, right? Normally they are all connected with fiber optic links, so that fiber optic connectivity is provided to this particular earth station. This is the earth station, right, which would be providing a satellite uplink. So you have a baseband signal which can be pulse code modulated signal, which can be time division multiplex signal, which can be frequency division multiplex signal. You have a modulator. Normally we use FM, PSK or QAM kind of modulation. The most widely used digital modulation is QPSK for satellite. Then you pass it through a band pass filter, and it is having some intermediate frequency. Roughly 70 megahertz frequency is used as a intermediate frequency. Then you have a microwave generator at 6 gigahertz or 14 gigahertz. If it is C band, it is 6 gigahertz. If it is KU band, it is 14 gigahertz. You give it to mixer. The role of mixer is to up convert. This is up converter, which converts the IF frequency into RF frequency. Then you again pass it through a band pass filter. The whole transmission bandwidth is looked after by this band pass filter. Suppose a satellite bandwidth is 500 megahertz. Entire 500 megahertz signal passes through this band pass filter. It is given to a high power amplifier like 2 cavity klystron, and then it is given to an antenna on earth station. Earth station antennas are very large antennas because they have to provide very high gain in the uplink. right? So this is then sent to the satellite transponder. This is the uplink model of the satellite. Next. Then it reaches the satellite. This is the space segment. The space segment is microwave repeater. So it is RF to RF repeater. The incoming signal is radio frequency signal. The outgoing signal is radio frequency signal, and there is a conversion and little bit of signal processing also. So this is satellite receive antenna. It is again passed through a band pass filter. Then there is a low noise amplifier, because this signal would be very poor. It has passed through the link of 36,000 kilometers through space. Around 200 dB of loss has taken place. So this signal is extremely weak signal, and you need to amplify using low noise amplifier, right? See, temperature and noise limits the entire performance of the satellite link. Anything and everything which is possible in satellite communication is suppressing the noise, by maintaining signal to noise or signal to noise density ratio, or carrier to noise and carrier to noise density ratio. And unless you maintain it to some specific level, you can't have a satellite link which is operational. Now it reaches the frequency translator. From this case, the frequency from this block, the frequency is converted from uplink frequency to downlink frequency. So if it is 6 gigahertz uplink, it is 4 gigahertz downlink. If it is 14 gigahertz uplink, it is 12 gigahertz downlink. Depending on whether it is C band or Ku band, you have this conversion. So conversion requires mixer. Mixer has a local oscillator, microwave shift oscillator, and you can see there is a 2 gigahertz shift between uplink and downlink frequency. So 6 minus 2 is 4, and 14 minus 2 is 12. So this is how the frequency conversion takes place. And there are other transponders also which would convert this frequency. Each transponder is having roughly 36 to 40 megahertz of bandwidth, and depending on number of transponders, you can have the overall bandwidth of the satellite. Then you give it to low power amplifier, which is your traveling wave tube. You would be surprised to know that the traveling wave tube used on the satellite can have as low as 15 watts of transmission output power, only 15 watts, or sometimes it can be 5 watt also. This is sufficient because lot of amplification is going to be provided by ground based earth stations, right? By employing large size antennas which are capable of providing huge gain. You cannot put bulky traveling wave tube on the satellite because that would increase the weight of the satellite. You cannot provide sufficient DC power to operate that traveling wave tube, and that's why they are always low power traveling wave tubes. You can't have high, though there are high power traveling wave tubes also, but you can't use them on satellite. So transponder uses this traveling wave tube. Traveling wave tube is the most widely used microwave amplifier in satellite communication. Next. So a satellite system basic sections. Now we come to the downlink. Downlink means the satellite transponder is transmitting, of course, through satellite downlink antenna. This is the earth station antenna which is receiving, again passes through band pass filter. Again, this is a low noise amplifier because this signal has passed through a 36,000 kilometer long wireless channel, and that's why it is a very low power signal. You would be surprised to know that power received at this particular point is of the order of 10 raised to minus 12 watt, right? 10 raised to minus 12 watt. So that is amplified by low noise amplifier. Then again, you have to convert it to the intermediate frequency from RF to IF, and that is a microwave generator, 4 gigahertz or 12 gigahertz, that would convert it into IF. Then you have to send it to demodulator. So whichever modulation is used on the transmission link, reverse modulation, demodulation takes place, and then you are sending the baseband signal. Which are these baseband signals? They are your normal telecom signals, your internet traffic, everything is your forming your baseband signal, and they are sent through ground network of fiber optic cables or fiber optic network. Next. The link budget is very important in satellite system. The link budget means how do we calculate power from the transmitting earth station to the receiving earth station, and how do we manage the bit rate, right? So uplink starts from the earth station. So your earth station transmitter output power maximum it is 2 kilowatt. So you would have around 2 kilowatt of transmission power. If you convert it into logarithm 10 log of 2000, it would be 33 dBW. 33 dBW power is transmitted by earth station transmitter. Then earth station back of loss is around 3 dB. Then earth station branching and feeder losses are at around 4 dB, right? Earth station transmit antenna gain which is provided is approximately 64 dB. 64 dB is a huge gain provided by the antenna. How do we provide? By large size antenna. Larger the diameter of the parabolic antenna, larger would be the gain provided by the parabolic antenna. So the 64 dB gain is provided. Additional uplink atmospheric loss is 0.6 dB, right? They would always take place. And the most important loss is free space path loss, which are calculated at C-band or Ku band frequencies, 14 gigahertz. They are roughly 206.5 dB. The most important point in satellite communication is a huge path loss of more than 206 dB, 200 dB, right? Then satellite receiver, there is an important parameter known as gain to antenna temperature or equivalent temperature ratio. These G by T ratios are specified for all earth stations, right? These G by T ratios are specified for earth stations as well as for satellite receiver, because they ultimately tell you how much gain is available and how much noise temperature. You know the role of noise temperature. See, everything is limited by noise, and this is thermal noise. You should have a model of equivalent noise temperature of this device, and this is roughly minus 5.3 dB per Kelvin. So dB Kelvin inverse, right? Minus 5.3. Then satellite branching and feeder loss is almost 0 dB. There are no losses in satellite branching and feeder. Bit rate available is 120 Mbps for the entire uplink. So you have 120 Mbps. Nowadays, these bit rates have increased. And today itself, we were discussing with that ISRO scientist who is researching on high throughput satellites. Any satellite which is capable of providing greater than 5 gigabits per second of data is called a high throughput satellite. I have presentation on high throughput satellite also in the subsequent slides. So we would discuss high throughput satellite also. And the modulation scheme used is 8 TSK. So QPSK is not sufficient. They go for 8 TSK so that you can increase the spectral efficiency by a factor of 2. Because QPSK requires only 4 phase values. 8 PSK requires 8 phase values. So you are doubling the bit rate in the 8 TSK. Now coming down to the earth and downlink, right, from satellite to the earth station. So satellite transmitter output power only 10 watt. As I mentioned, traveling wave tube only 10 watt transmission power, only 10, and 10 log 10 is 10 dBW. 10 log 10 is 10 dBW is transmission power on the satellite. Why satellite power is limited? You are dependent on solar power. Nothing more than solar power is available on the satellite or satellite and point or space segment. Too much power is available on the ground stations or earth stations. You don't have any problem of increasing transmission power on the earth station. Only limiting factor on the earth station transmitting power is your interference guidelines from International Telecommunication Union. You cannot increase your transmission power beyond some limit. That is the only limitation. Otherwise, you can increase it, right? But the increase in the transmitter power output from the satellite transmitter has a limitation because of solar power. Satellite backoff loss is 0.1 dB. The backoff is a process of solving the saturation phenomena of a linear power amplifier, right? Satellite branching and feeder loss is very low, 0.5. Satellite transmit antenna gain is 30 dB. You can compare 60 dB gain from the earth station antenna, only half the gain in satellite antenna, only 30.8 dB. Additional downlink atmospheric loss is 0.4 dB. Again, free space path loss at 12 gigahertz, slightly less than this. This is 206, this is 205. 1 dB loss difference because frequencies are less, and the frequency decreases, the losses decrease. So slightly less losses for downlink. Then earth station receive antenna gain is 62 dB. Again, you are providing around 64 dB or 62 dB of gain by a huge size of antenna. You can see the gain of the antenna, the diameter of the antenna is 15 meter. 15 meter is the diameter of the antenna, very large size of antenna. Then earth station branching and feeder loss is almost 0 dB. Earth station equivalent noise temperature is 270 Kelvin. Now see the difference here. Here it is 270 Kelvin, means 0 degree centigrade, right? Around 0 degree centigrade. Then Earth station G by T ratio is 37.7 dB Kelvin inverse. See the difference between Earth station G by T ratio and the ratio of G by T on the satellite. This is negative, whereas this is positive, because we can provide huge gain on the receiving Earth station. And bit rate is same as transmitted bit rate. You have 120 Mbps, same 120 Mbps. This is the entire design of the satellite communication link. This is how the power levels are distributed. This is how the antennas provide gain. This is how the modulation patterns are playing a role in deciding bit rate. And this is the role of temperature, overall noise temperature in the entire satellite link budget calculation. This is the most crucial part for establishing a successful satellite link. Next. So now we come to the types of satellites. This classification is based on ISRO website. I refer to the ISRO website, and they are classifying the satellites into 4 to 5 categories. Next, the most important are communication satellites. So ISRO has a large number of satellites, geostationary satellites, known as Indian National Satellite Series, INSAT series, one of the largest domestic communication satellite systems in Asia Pacific region, with 9 operational communication satellites. So as of now, there are 9 operational communication satellites which are placed in geostationary orbit. You would like to know the position of satellites for INSAT series or GSAT series. Normally, they are placed with the position of 92 to 94 degrees east longitude, because India, you know the position of India in terms of geographic, 68 degree east onwards up to say 94 95 degrees east, right? The northeast region, that would 82.5 degree passes through Allahabad. 82.5 degree east longitude passes through Allahabad. So we want to cover India, so that satellite position is 92 to 94 degrees east longitude for Indian subcontinent. Established in 1983 with commissioning of INSAT 1B, it initiated a major revolution in India's communication sector and sustained the same later. So we are still continuing with these communication satellites. Then there is a GSAT 17 series which joined the constellation of INSAT system, which has 15 operational satellites, namely INSAT 3A, 3C, 4A. These are the various satellites which are operational even today, right? Starting from INSAT series, now they have given another name, GSAT series, geostationary. All of them are geostationary orbit satellites, but the names are changed. Next, this is the continuation of communication satellites itself. There is not this is not a new type of satellite. The INSAT system, with more than 200 transponders in C, extended C and Ku bands, provides services to telecommunications, television broadcasting, satellite news gathering, societal applications, weather forecasting, disaster warning, and search and rescue operations. All these operations are done by these 200 transponders, more than 200 transponders. You can see roughly one transponder 40 megahertz bandwidth. How much is the total bandwidth? 200 into 40, 8,000 megahertz. That is how much? 8 gigahertz of the total bandwidth available for communication purpose, exclusively for communication purpose. And the bands used by ISRO is C, extended C and Ku. These are the latest details available from ISRO website. We have been receiving disaster warning. Right now we are receiving disaster warning for the Arabian Sea, likely impact of the cyclone around 5th June. In the coastal area of South Gujarat and the Saurashtra Kutch region. So these operations and these communications are done by the INSAT series or GSAT series of satellites. Next. The latest satellite from ISRO. ISRO launched a satellite known as GSAT-30. It was successfully launched into a geosynchronous transfer orbit, GTO, on 17 January 2020 from Kourou launch base, French Guiana, by Ariane 5 rocket. This Ariane 5 is a rocket launching GSLV rocket. Now let me explain why only French Guiana and why only Kourou, which is selected as a launching base. Or India, suppose India is launching its satellite, it is from Sriharikota, Andhra Pradesh. Now there has to be some logic. Why only Sriharikota is selected? Why only Kourou is selected? Why not Ahmedabad? Why not Bangalore? Why not Trivandrum? See, when you are launching a satellite, you normally send it into the eastward direction, and the rotation is starting from east, right? Because earth rotates from east to west, right? So that same rotation has to be maintained. It is known as a prograde orbit. Prograde and retrograde. Prograde means in the same direction of earth's rotation, retrograde in the opposite direction. So if it is eastward direction, your satellite would be launched in the eastern direction. Suppose we are launching it from Sriharikota. Now to the east direction of Sriharikota, there is Arabian Sea, not Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, right? So if something goes wrong and the satellite does not reach into its designated orbit, or something goes wrong in the transfer orbit, at the most what would happen? It would plunge into the sea. It would not hit any ground station, or it would not be hitting any population, right? That's why they are always selected in the direction where, in case of emergency, they do not harm the general public. They should not be, see, in case of failure, if these rockets, very heavy rockets launching, if something goes wrong and it falls down back to the earth, and if it falls on a highly populated area like Calcutta or maybe Chennai, what would happen? You can imagine the disaster. And that's why these places are places on the seashore. They are very near to seashore. And French Guiana is located near equator. Its latitude is 3 degree latitude, very close to 0 degree means equator. That is why it is launched from French Guiana. Most of the Indian satellites were launched from French Guiana. Right now we are launching our satellite from India, Sriharikota, because now we have developed technology to launch our own satellites. But still, some of the satellites are still launched from French Guiana. It is in South Korea, South America, as a continent. GSAT-30 is configured on ISRO's enhanced I3K bus. This 3K comes from 3000. 3000 means roughly 3000 watts of power is available, and the weight is also in the range of 3000 kgs. Right. So this is known as 3K. 3K is 3000, 2K is 2000. This is known as IK. See, what is the importance of bus structure? See, when you are dealing with 3000 watts of power, you have to design the DC power distribution systems. And this bus is capable of, see, you can imagine distributing 3 kilowatts of DC power is not an easy task. So that's why this design of the DC power distribution system by means of a bus structure is capable of taking care of 3000 watts. Earlier it was 2K, 2000 and so on, right? So they provide communication services from geostationary orbit in C and Ku bands. The satellite derive its heritage from ISRO's earlier INSAT or GSAT satellite series. This is the latest satellite which was launched by ISRO. What is the weight of this satellite? It was 3357 kg. GSAT-30 serve as replacement to INSAT 4A spacecraft with enhanced coverage, means the footprint is increasing. Satellite provides Indian mainland and island coverage in Ku band and extended coverage in C band covering Gulf countries, a large number of Asian countries and Australia. So we are capable of providing coverage up to Australia, and naturally Australia is in the south direction, right? So our satellite is capable of providing coverage to this particular area. The designated in-orbit operational life of GSAT is more than 15 years. So once we launch the satellite, we can expect the services of satellite to be available for a longer period, as long as 15. But if something goes wrong in between, you have to abandon those satellites. There is a graveyard of the satellites. The graveyard is the place where all those non-operational satellites would be assembled finally, because somewhere they would fall. Somewhere they have to fall, right? And they are no longer in the designated orbits. So this designated orbit life is 15 years. Next. Then there are Earth observation satellites. They have to simply observe the position of the Earth, the condition on the Earth, and they do not serve the purpose of communication. They are remote sensing satellites, known as Indian remote sensing satellites. Starting from 1888, ISRO has launched many operational remote sensing satellites. Today, India is one of the largest constellation of remote sensing satellites. You know the remote sensing. Sensing from a distance is a remote sensing, right? You are sensing the position of the Earth. You are sensing various parameters related to Earth. So how do they work? You have various instruments, sensors and instrumentation. They are provided on board these satellites to provide necessary data in diversified spatial, spectral and temporal resolutions to cater to different user requirements in the country. and for global uses. We do provide data to foreign countries also, right? There are agreements. So the data from these satellites are used for several applications covering agriculture, water resources, urban planning, rural development. Various government departments use this data and they are provided by Earth observation satellites, right? Forestry, ocean resources, and disaster management. So this application is for Earth observation only. It has nothing to do with satellite communication, means transmission of information or transmission of television broadcasting signals, known as digital video broadcasting, DVB. Next. There are experimental satellites, and you will be surprised to know there are some satellites which have been designed by various universities. Universities provided it to ISRO, and ISRO launched their satellites. So various universities are working with ISRO for performing various experiments. They are also called university satellites. So ISRO has nano satellites. ISRO has launched many small satellites mainly for the experimental purposes. This experiment include remote sensing, atmospheric studies, payload. See, suppose they want to study ionosphere, then they would do it on experimental satellite, because you cannot use communication satellite for studying ionosphere. For that you require different instrumentation. For that you require different sensors. For that you require different data rates. For that you require different processing circuits, including digital image processing, digital video processing, digital signal processing, right? And that's why their payloads, the payload is your actual satellite transponder, right, which plays a role in communicating from Earth station to Earth station, and the orbit controls, recovery technology, etc. All these are done by experimental satellites. Next. You have navigation satellites, right? They provide navigation. GPS, global positioning system, is a navigation, right? So satellite navigation service is an emerging satellite-based system with commercial and strategic applications. Of course, foreign satellites are already there, but ISRO also developed its own satellite network for navigation. So to meet the civil aviation requirements, see, our flights are regularly flying over the Indian subcontinent from one place to another, one country to another. So they need to provide the navigation help. So with Airport Authority of India, which is the controlling authority for flights, their schedules and their operations, in establishing the GPS-aided geo-augmented navigation, it is known as a GAGAN. This GAGAN system was developed by ISRO. It is GPS-aided navigation. To meet the user requirements of the positioning, navigation, and timing services based on the indigenous system, ISRO is establishing a regional satellite navigation system called Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, known as IRNSS. So this is our indigenous system. I have a doubt whether this is completely controlling the air traffic in India or out of India, but it is assisting the airport authority. It is not complete replacement of existing navigation network for the aircrafts. Right. Next. NAVIC is a acronym for this kind of application, right? So this is an independent Indian satellite-based positioning system for critical national applications. The main objective is to provide reliable position, navigation, and this navigation is NAVIC and critical application is C. So that has become a NAVIC. Navigation and timing services over India and its neighborhood to provide fairly good accuracy to the user. So good accuracy in terms of your location, exactly where precisely you are standing as of now, that can be independently mentioned by this GPS kind of satellite. This IRNSS will be basically providing two types of services: standard positioning service and restricted service. RS and SPS, these two services are, the standard positioning service would be provided to anybody who is using mobile phone and who is using particular app of this satellite. But restricted service would be only for government agencies or only for ISRO. They would not be available for the general public. So to date, ISRO has built a total of 9 satellites in the IRNSS series, of which 8 are currently in orbit, right? Slightly up. The 3 of these satellites are in geostationary orbit, GEO, while remaining are geosynchronous orbits, and they have an inclination of 29 degrees. So I mentioned the difference between geostationary and geosynchronous. 29 degrees the inclination from orbital plane, equatorial orbital plane. Next. This is the recent research area where ISRO is researching, where the entire world is researching how to improve throughput of a satellite. Throughput is your data capability. how many data bits per second you are able to transmit. That is your throughput, right? So the research area is high throughput satellite, right? What is a high throughput satellite? A high throughput satellite is a satellite that has many times the throughput of a traditional fixed satellite service satellite for the same amount of allocated frequency in orbit. You are not supposed to change frequency. You are not supposed to change bandwidth, but you have to increase the bit rate or throughput. How this is possible? This is possible by designing a MIMO kind of antenna structure, by improving spectral efficiency of your waveforms, or other digital signal processing algorithms to improve the throughput without improving bandwidth or without changing different frequency spectrum, without going for different frequency spectrum. This is how, to give you an example, you are asked to perform better in the examination, right? Without conducting extra classes or without giving you extra time. You have to improve your score. This is high throughput. You are scoring 80 marks. We won't conduct more number of lectures. You won't be given more amount of time, but you have to score 90 marks. This is high throughput. A very simple explanation of high throughput. You won't be provided more bandwidth. You won't be provided new spectrum. You have to improve your throughput. This is high throughput satellite. These satellites take advantage of frequency reuse and multiple spot beams to increase throughput and reduce the cost per bit delivered regardless of the spectrum choice. So they go for many beams, multiple spot beams, and you have to ensure that they are not interfering with each other. So same frequencies are repeatedly used. F1 is used for Karnataka, then F1 can be used for Maharashtra, F1 can be used for Gujarat, right? So several spot beams would be created which use same frequency, same downlink frequency. So without changing the frequency, you are improving the throughput. By controlling the beam width, you are making the beam width narrower and narrower, and you are increasing the frequency reuse. This is the concept of high throughput satellite. Next. How does the high throughput satellite work? The throughput is the speed of information in bits per second, right? So two things govern this. Number one, bandwidth will decide the bit rate. The most important parameter deciding the bit rate is your bandwidth. This is several hundred megahertz. 500 megahertz is available as of now. Most of the satellites are having capability of 500 megahertz bandwidth. This is the size of the pipe, which can be increased by frequency reuse. So suppose there are 12 carrier frequencies in this 6 gigahertz or 4 gigahertz uplink and downlink frequency band. I can make it 12 into 224, right? I am repeating the same frequency, so I can make it 24. So by frequency reuse, I am increasing the carrier frequencies. When increasing the carrier frequency means I am increasing the throughput. Or I can go for efficiency in bits per second by designing different kind of modulation. Different kind of modulation gives us more number of bits per second, but at the cost of complexity of process of modulation, at the cost of complexity of receiver design. This is not for free, but then there are so many digital signal processing algorithms to control the spectrum efficiency, and this is how you can control the throughput. So maximizing aggregate satellite bandwidth for maximizing individual user throughput are often conflicting technical goals. See, sometimes you have option of maximizing the aggregate satellite bandwidth by frequency reuse. You can increase the aggregate satellite bandwidth by frequency reuse, or you can maximize individual user throughput. They are often conflicting requirement. Means if you go for individual throughput requirement, you can't go for maximizing the aggregate bandwidth. So there is a trade-off between these two. The right answer depends on the business applications. Who are the customers? Who are the operators which require high throughput, right? So that would govern the high throughput satellite design. Next. The efficiency is the amount of error-free information to the user in bits per hertz or bits per second per hertz. The spot beams drive efficiency up, but close proximity of same frequency spot beam increases interference and brings efficiency down. See, I go for more and more number of close frequency carriers, right? And I increase the efficiency, that is efficiency in terms of bits per hertz up, but they are close to each other because I am repeatedly using same frequency. So that would cause interference, and interference would lead to decrease in the quality of the signal, or it will increase the bit error rate at the receiving station. Whereas greater distance between same frequency spot beams will increase efficiency but reduce frequency reuse and total satellite throughput. So what is best? These two are the problems. How do we go for? There is a trade-off. How do you manage? Some customers require low grade quality, lower efficiency, whereas fewer users require carrier grade quality or high efficiency. So those who require higher quality, they can be provided more efficiency, carrier grade efficiency or carrier grade radio signal, whereas other users which are not so quality conscious or which are not requiring that kind of good quality, they can go for a low throughput, and there is a trade-off between these two. This would be decided by the operator of the satellite who is providing the services. Next. The next is in the pipeline, extending Wi-Fi to the sky, to the flight. See, we fly from one place to another. Of course, this corona pandemic has seriously restricted the air traffic control, air traffic also, and the flights are cancelled. But we are unable to access internet as of now. I doubt anybody has experienced internet continuity on board in the aircraft. You are not able to access Wi-Fi in your aircraft. Why? Because satellites are not providing these services to aircraft. So next in the line in satellite communication is extending Wi-Fi to the sky. How to extend it? So it would be by providing the satellite services directly to the aircraft, right? In flight priority, 85% would require gaming application, 73 would require mobile access, and 70% would require real-time flight information, right? And there are several flights. There are several flights which are flying at a time. These are the flight routes. So the satellites have to design their network so that they are continuously able to provide the satellite coverage over a given path. See, there is a source and destination for any given flight path, right? So the satellite beam width or satellite footprint has to be designed in such a way that it covers the entire traffic from the source to destination, or otherwise they would have to go for switching of satellites from one to another if it is far away. Suppose there is a flight from Ahmedabad to New York or Delhi to New York, a single satellite won't be able to provide the coverage throughout the journey of the aircraft, and that's why they can go for the switching of the satellites. So the world's air traffic density varies throughout the globe. Satellite platform designs can significantly impact the customer experience, and now they are working on this extending the Wi-Fi to the sky. Right. Next. Unfortunately, these links were the hyperlinks, and with my presentation, I would have shown much better information because these are the latest information available on web. I would once again try to go for my presentation, and before that some questions can be sent on the message SMS, sorry, these messages, right? So please, I request none to discontinue your presentation. I would try my own, and then I will see whether these hyperlinks are working. Okay.
Sure. You may try your presentation, sir.
Yes, I am trying. Is it visible? Yes. Hello.
No, sir. No,
No,
it is
sir,
not
your
visible.
screen is not visible.
What is wrong with this?
Sir, may I open the links and share it again?
Just you need to open the Intelsat website, Intelsat. Intelsat.com.
Okay,
Only
sir.
one website would be sufficient.
Okay, sir. I am just going to that link and I will display. Yeah, it's visible to all now.
So this is the most interesting website to know about latest things which the Intelsat is doing. Intelsat is a company launching satellites and managing the whole network, global network. You please link on resources. In that brochures, in this connecting Asia to the world. Okay, your brochure here. Okay, fine. Scroll it upward, slightly upward. Yes, see how they are operating. This next colorful slide. Okay, fine. Can you slightly broaden it? Slightly broaden, slightly. Maybe zooming or. Okay, fine. So see, there are 3 satellites: Intelsat 19, Intelsat 20, and Intelsat 21. They are distributing the content worldwide on well-established video neighborhoods. So how are they planning? See here, this Intelsat 19 and 21, they are providing the US global coverage. 19 and 21 connection to the Intelsat Galaxy fleet for complete US cable handed. So entire US cable network is of television channels. They are working on this Intelsat Galaxy fleet US coverage, right? Then IS-21, the location of the satellites you can see 68.5 degree east is in the Indian subcontinent. So all the channels, TV channels in India, right, and neighborhood, they are provided by this IS-20 satellites. 68.5. This is over India, and this is 302 degree east. This is for America, and one more region, that is Pacific region, right, where you have top regional channels, Western customers. The channels are also mentioned: Discovery, Viacom, BBC, Encompass, and so on. This is Latin America. So this is how they provide the coverage. Next, downwards, please. Yes, please. Okay, fine. So Intelsat 20 at 68, slightly up. Intelsat 20 at 68.5 degrees east longitude. So this is C-band Indian neighborhood with extensive cable head and penetration over the Indian Ocean region. So 332 channels, including 50 HD channels. See how many television channels are provided by a single satellite. You are able to see here. There are 332 channels, including 50 high definition TV channels, HD channels, right? And there is Ku-band ethnic DTH platform also. So whatever we receive directly, see there are 2 kinds of TV transmission: one through cable network, and nowadays we directly receive using Ku-band. So we have Ku-band transmission also. And how many channels? You just scroll it down. These are channels: Colors, Discovery, and History, and G Cinema, and Sony, and BBC World, and these channels are provided. See, Doordarshan is not part of the list. Why? Because Doordarshan would be served by GSAT series of satellite or ISRO satellite. And this is how these channels are distributed over the globe by different satellites. Now come to the middle row. Yes, this is Intelsat 19 satellite at 166 degree east, right? So you can position. This is primary C-band cable through Pacific Ocean region. This is for Pacific Ocean region. This includes China. 222 channels, including 47 HD channels, and there is also Ku-band ethnic DTH platform. The channels are Animal Planet, Discovery, and so on. Then there is another satellite, Intelsat 21. This is at 302 degree east. This covers the Latin America. This is different region, and there are 185 channels, which include 73 HD channels. So this is how they provide these services in the form of the broadcasting satellites or TV channels. Various TV channels are broadcast using this kind of network. Okay, go back to the main menu. Can I take 5 minutes more?
Yeah, sir, sure.
Only
sir,
5 minutes.
You are referring to Intelsat website or
Intelsat only.
Intelsat only. This is fine, sir. Media resources.
1 minute. Slightly downwards.
Yeah.
Not media. Satellite related services. Satellite related services.
Just a second, sir.
Okay. Satellite related services. Okay.
Okay.
Download it. There is a brochure, satellite related services. Click on download.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Scroll it.
Just a second, sir.
There is a map. There is a map.
Yeah.
Yes, please expand this map. Okay. Everybody knows about tracking, telemetry, and command stations. All satellites are controlled by these command signals: tracking, telemetry, and command TT&C stations. So this map shows the network of Intelsat, which is spread throughout the world. And where are their stations? You just focus on India. There is a station in Karnataka, Hassan, India, Karnataka, right? ISRO is also using this ground station, control station, right? So for C band, KU band, and extend or K band, these control station. So how are they earmarking? Intelsat facilities are in this orange color, and partner facility, including the ISRO, right? ISRO is a partner of Intelsat because see, Hassan has to control the satellite which is operational over Indian subcontinent. So Intelsat has to take help of this. So this is a ground network by which all the satellites are controlled by Intelsat company, right? You go slightly downward in the same brochure. Slightly downwards. Is it possible to scroll downwards?
Yeah, sir. Just a second. Okay. Is it fine, sir? Okay.
No. Slightly up. Okay, fine. See, they are providing services to customers. They are providing the services to customers to operate the ground stations and to provide the antennas also, right? So what kind of services they provide? They are provide this green sorry, this color. Yes, they provide ground antenna systems or teleports, and they provide the system design and engineering consultancy services. Suppose I want to route my internet traffic, which is aggregated using a fiber optic link, and I want to connect it to particular satellite operated by Intelsat. Then that has to be operated through a teleport, and the teleport would be connected to a ground antenna system. This ground antenna system is controlled by Intelsat. So I have to get access to this uplink antenna system, right? They provide teleport optimization, consolidations, relocations, and so on, and they can provide procurement, installation, test, and acceptance services for these antennas also. So they provide entire ground station regulatory consulting and all the uplink facilities by means of uplink antenna, because see, installing a huge antenna and maintaining these uplink facility is not a simple task, and that's why these companies are providing their services. So with this, those who are interested, they can very well visit the website of Intelsat, one of the most authoritative website in the world. You just go through Intelsat brochures, how they are operating their networks, what kind of technical services are provided, and you would see all the technical fundamentals studied in the classroom. They are very well accepted in the practice. There is no difference between theory and practice. C band, extended C band, KU band, they still continue to exist, and this is how we would be referring to these resources. So now quickly I can answer few questions if they are there. Can you send the link of brochure and PDF? Yes, I have already done. Nand has already helped me in this regard. Fine, the session was okay, but there are no questions. If anybody wants to ask question, he can write in this message. Some problems are not solved in Dennis Roddy. See, These are only odd number of problems which are solved. Even number of problems are to be solved by us. So when I was teaching it at LD College of Engineering, those who have studied satellite communication from me, they would remember I would solve all examples of Dennis Roddy in the class, solved as well as unsolved, right? So this Dennis Roddy is one of the classic textbooks. There is another textbook by William Pratt, Timothy and Pratt. Right. Yes.
If user
Okay.
can ask the questions on the link given for slides also, if they need.
Yes. Okay. Fine. I will give another 5 minutes for question answer. Then thereafter I would close. Right?
Yeah, sir, sure. If someone has question, the link is given in chat window. You can ask the question, so I will display it for all the audience.
Hello, sir.
Okay.
Hello, Bhuva speaking.
Yes,
I have
please.
one doubt related to Gagan.
Okay.
Okay. As per my knowledge, whatever I refer, three satellites are used from our Indian ISRO launch, and others
Okay.
are of GPS. Am I right or wrong?
No,
For
they
Gagan.
on their website mention that they are all constellations of Indian satellites. Right.
But GPS augmented means some services are used from GPS also.
Right.
Yes or no?
But
Yes.
that is beyond the constellation which is displayed by ISRO itself. So ISRO is
Yes.
mentioning
Yes.
their own constellation. Right.
Yes. For
Of
our
course,
constellation.
it may take the signals. It may take the signals from other satellites. Right.
Okay. And while in the case
Yeah.
of Navik or IRNSS, we are totally independent. We are not depend on the
Yeah.
GPS. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
As
Thank you,
far
sir.
as accuracy is concerned, there may be slight difference in terms of accuracy. Right.
In which case accuracy is better, sir?
It,
For our constellation, in the case
okay.
of Navik, accuracy is better, or
Okay.
from GPSC.
Good.
Okay. And for globally, maybe the accuracy is more in the case of GPS.
Right. It depends on region from where the photographs are captured. Right.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Sir, there is one more question.
Yeah.
So you can see in the screen. For problem in
Problems
satellite
in satellite
communication, you may
communication,
refer
you
some
may refer
textbook.
some textbook. The textbook by Dennis Roddy is an excellent one. Another is by Timothy and Pratt. Wiley publication. One is Tata McGraw-Hill, another is Wiley publication. These two are the most standard textbooks for satellite communication. No third textbook is required. Only two textbooks sufficient. Timothy Pratt and Dennis Roddy. Roddy is much easier to read, much easier to explain, much easier to solve problems. The solved problems and unsolved problems, very simple. You just substitute the equation and you would get the answer.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Now
fine.
I request to extend vote of thanks to Kiran Parmar, sir.
Devesh sir, please get what of thanks. Hello, Devesh sir.
Hello.
You are audible.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Parmar sir. Myself, Tushar Dave, Head of Department, Electronics and Communication Department, Government Engineering College. I am thankful to Parmar sir for delivering his webinar today. And what Parmar sir is known for the clear speech and the tireless teaching, we all know. So thank you, sir, for sparing time and delivering this session today. I'm also thankful to Dhandukia sir for providing the smooth platform, Google Meet. And I'm also thankful to participants who joined today. And we look forward for the next tomorrow's session also to meet again. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Parmar sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all the participants. Thank you, Professor Kiran Parmar, sir. Thank you, Bhuva, sir.